This is the Gathering of Nations in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Lasting 3 days, it's the largest reunion of tribes in the continent, with thousands of Native American participants and a few more thousand of the general public. Because of the number of people and the distances they come from, with some of them coming all the way from the Great White North and the Patagonia in the south, this gathering, this powwow, serves as an epicenter that connects all the nations of the Americas, not only the nations represented in the event itself, but also the nations that have flags and borders and identities of their own. Perhaps all roads don't lead to Rome, but rather, they lead to our Americas.
How about a round of applause, my friend? It's truly a sight and honor of beauty, man. Awesome. Thank you.
We are all connected. That may sound extremely cliche in our age of globalization and technology, in which everyone and everything can be reached from, well, anywhere, with the touch of a button or screen. But that has always been a reality for us. Our Americas have been connected for centuries, a long time before the European ships first arrived. We've all been bound together, the Americas, a name that conjures an identity that is both diverse and unique. How did the Americas come into being? How did the Americas happen? The New World, the land of opportunity, and a certain magic. One of the best examples comes from the 19 pueblos in New Mexico, whose sacred and ceremonial items all have feathers from very special birds that have come from southern Mexico and Central America for centuries. The macaw, a majestic bird, so beautiful that it has been revered and its feathers considered sacred, even in places where it doesn't belong. This was the epicenter back then, Cahokia, a marketplace brimming with life and commercial exchange. This is one of the places where the roads of our Americas connected. North, Central, and South came together. From that point in the map, one could reach anywhere in the Americas. The pueblos of the Southwest Plains, Teotihuacan, and Tlaxcala in central Mexico, the Mayan city-states of Central America, the Amazon basin, and even Cusco in the heights of the Andes. Since ancient times, Native Americans have traveled by water and by land to trade among their tribes and civilizations. The tribes of North America wanted the sacred feathers of the macaws, so they got them in exchange for jade and turquoise, which were sacred in Mexico. The macaws arrived to Mexico from Central America in exchange for silver and gold. Salt and cacao from the Yucatan Peninsula were also traded as the highest value commodities because they were considered gifts from the gods, along with obsidian, rubber, tobacco, and cotton. And those goods made their way down to South America, where copper, coca leaves, camelids, gold, and textiles were the main exports. That network of commerce had no boundaries, and instead included many paths to connection. The Cocopelli, meaning traders, were responsible for that network, carrying merchandise on their backs across the continent, making them look like hunchbacks who played the flute to announce their arrival to a town. By land, runners would take the advantage of pebbled roads and designated pathways, no matter if the landscape was jungle, or plains, or mountains. By sea, merchants would brave the seas, confident that their gods would guide their path. Trade extended to the islands of the Caribbean in canoes and small boats. Goods spread, and ideas spread with them. For where commerce goes, technology, art, and religion follow, shaping and weaving the cultures of the continent like the tapestries they traded. And every item that was traded had a meaning beyond its commercial value. Today, between 60 to 70% of the foods of the world came from the Americas, such as avocados, coconuts, pineapple, peanuts, tomatoes, and squash, just to name a few. However, before any of these goods became important, the original export, the divine good upon which our Americas came to exist, was maize. Maize, or corn if you want the common name, spread through this network as the foundation of civilization. More than that, it was a gift from the gods. Maize has been the crop that connects the economy, life, and spirit of our Americas since the dawn of its time. The connections are so strong that they have thrived throughout the centuries. The Spanish came and conquered the Americas, but still had to follow the same roads already established before them. So did the British, the Portuguese, the French, and the Dutch. No matter where they settled, the connecting roads found them, from the Texas desert to the Great White North, to the inhuman heights of the Andes.
They're just connections that have not been studied or explored, like the connection between Peru and Mexico and the silver mining industry that the Spanish developed. I mean, Mexico received hordes and hordes and hordes of Peruvian miners during the development of the silver industry in the 15th, I would say mostly in the 15th, 16th, 17th century. I mean, there's even a town in Guanajuato known as Santa Rosa de Lima. There's even a mountain range or a chain of mountains called Santa Rosa de Lima, after the Peruvian famous city, which is Lima. So these are things that I believe that anthropologists, historians need to explore, and that I myself am exploring as an author, as a writer, just speaking, storytelling. I mean, to draw out who we are in reality.
Then the Americas rebelled, and the revolutions followed those same roads. Hidalgo in Mexico, Bolivar in Venezuela, Sucre in Peru and Bolivia, San Martin in Chile and Argentina. Even George Washington in the 13 colonies followed the roads. And it was a single shot fired in Lexington that ignited the spirit of liberty in the Americas. The roads in the continent have been so connected that the blaze of freedom had to follow them. The unavoidable truth is that those roads, timeless and essential to our Americas, lead us here and now, too. Even most of our modern highways have been built along ancient trade routes. We trade a lot more than macaw feathers and maize. We trade our modern version of goods that we worship because they support our way of life.
There is a very strong connection between us in terms of work, in terms of trade, in terms of investments. I think the underlying philosophy that is evolving in spite of the protests of some politicians is that these treaties are returning to the status quo before the Europeans arrived.
We even trade places. People move, migrating, connecting, just like the gathering of the nations itself. Migration among our nations has never stopped. We can never be foreigners in our own continent. Ultimately, what we don't trade may matter most. We don't trade, but rather share a land, a history, and an identity that transcends borders and nationalities.
the children are not the ones who set the expectations, okay? It's the parents who do that. So how our kids turn out, how our future turns out, is up to us, to you and me and everybody else who's watching. It's up to us to manage that and to come and to get into this agreement that this criteria needs to manifest itself for us to survive as a great continent.
North, Central, South. Those are mere adjectives for the same. In the end, as in the beginning, the roads that run through our Americas bind us all.